Welcome to the Proptech podcast. It's Kylie Davis here, and I'm delighted to be your host as we explore the brave new world where technology and real estate collide. I passionately believe we need to create and grow a sense of community between the innovators and the real estate agents, and sharing our stories is a great way to do that. So the aim of each episode of the Proptech podcast is to introduce you, our listeners, to an innovator who is pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and to explore the issues and challenges raised by the technology and how we together can create some amazing property experiences. And my guest in this episode is Shelli Trung, the head of Second Century Ventures and the REACH program in Australia and the Asia Pacific. REACH have just recently announced their first cohort of proptechs from Australia and New Zealand. And Shelli tells us about the program and how the innovators are being supported by REACH are transforming real estate into the future. So Shelli Trung, welcome to the show.
Fantastic to be here.
Thanks so much. So Shelli, I'm really excited about our conversation today. But to kick off, what we always ask our guests to do is to give us your elevator pitch. And I think given how important an elevator pitch is in pitching for REACH, I'd love to hear yours.
Sure. So Shelli Trung, I'm the managing partner for REACH Australia. REACH Australia is an organisation and accelerator program that is owned and operated by Second Century Ventures. And Second Century Ventures is the venture arm for the National Association of Realtors.
Cool. And so what's the problem that Second Century Ventures and REACH solves?
So our main problem is helping really a lot of proptech companies or frankly technology companies who want to navigate and understand the real estate industry. The real estate industry is, really one of the industries that need a little bit of help with innovation and disruption. A lot of great people work in the industry, but it has been a little bit slower to adopt change. I think we all know that. That's why we're all here. And what Second Century and REACH does is helps a lot of the industry to better understand the innovation that's available to them, but also with the technology companies out in the ecosystem, they don't seem to understand how the real estate industry works. So we also provide that bridge for technology companies who may be great in their own areas, but don't really understand how real estate transactions work and how to really sell, navigate, and do partnerships with the real estate industry.
So tell us a little bit about the history of REACH. Like, when did it start, and what does it do specifically?
So the REACH program started off about in 2013. The program itself has been running for about 7 years with 8 cohorts, roughly 60 companies in the portfolio. And the idea is very much, again, to help bridge that gap with the real estate industry and technology. We invest in companies that come through the program. It's a 9-month scale-up program. It works slightly differently to other accelerator programs out there. It is a top performing program. It's ranked amongst the Techstars, the Y Combinators, the 500 startups. But it's a little different in that it's exclusively for the real estate industry. Yep. And we tend to focus more on companies that are a little bit, past the MVP stage, really a little bit, pre-Series A, sort of ecosystem. The idea is that we provide them industry education and access to the real estate industry. So slightly different from your stock standard incubator and accelerator, because, we're well past the stage of MVPs. We're really about industry education and industry access.
Right. So it's scaling up understanding of what the industry needs within those businesses, and also in scaling up an understanding in the industry of what that business could do to help a real estate agent perform better.
Yep. Real estate agents, and that includes residential and commercial, but we're really encompassing that as the real estate industry as a whole. So for example, and we look at technology outside of the real estate industry that can enhance, and what I call enhance and enable the real estate industry. So, for example, a DocuSign. DocuSign was a company we invested in, Second Century invested in about roughly 10 years ago, and obviously that company's gone on to do great things. It's listed. as $1 billion company. But if you're looking back 10 years ago, it was, digital signatures were not legal when Second
No.
Century had the vision. You're thinking that far back, like everyone thinks, oh, yes, it's PropTech. But 10 years ago, it's legal tech, right?
Yeah.
And digital signatures weren't even legal. Like we were faxing our signatures over. And so one of the great things that, Second Century does is provide that insight and access and for Second Century to sort of early on see an opportunity with DocuSign. Yes, it's a piece of legal tech, but this can really transform the real estate industry. And all of us now obviously use it. And even for me, as a VC, I use it all the time, to sign contracts, it's second nature. And so we see, we look at technology. It can be marketing technology. It could be, logistics companies, mobility. Again, we look at that piece of technology and think, well, how can it actually help the real estate industry practitioner, but the real estate industry more broadly as well? And again, it includes commercial, residential, across the industry.
So let's just get really clear. So Second Century Ventures is a VC company, but it's actually got at its heart and at its core the real estate industry, because it's the investment arm of the National Association of Realtors, isn't it, in the US?
Correct. Yeah.
So everything you do, you're seeing through a property lens or a real estate lens.
We're looking at as an industry lens, if you like. We're looking at it, well, does this add value to the real estate industry? Does it add value to the real estate practitioner? Does it improve the transaction? And end of the day, you and I who are purchasing, real estate, whether to live, whether to work in, whether to go shopping in, whether that's, going from one place to another, how can we actually, we all live and work in buildings, right? Yep. And there's a transitions in between. So we look at it as how can this make that life a little bit easier? And, my particular focus is on Reach Australia and Southeast Asia. I lived many years in the States, and as well as London. And one of the reasons I came back to our region is because we just have a massive population boom. Australia's had barely a recession, and Southeast Asia is really coming into its own. And in terms of price per square feet, okay, we can't really compete with the US, particularly with Southeast Asia. But according to the UN, we are expecting 1 billion people to migrate from the rural areas to the urban areas in the next 10 years. It's been classed as it's been classed as the biggest mass migration of people ever. That's a lot of people we need to move. So our role in the industry is that, how can we make that transition a little bit easier for that population that needs to move? If you're talking about the volume of real estate transactions, the volume is certainly going to be in this region, but maybe the price per square feet isn't quite there. So the kind of technology we're looking at is going to be slightly different.
Right. So look, tell me more about why Reach has branched out into Australia, why Australia is kind of your centre for the Asia Pac region.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think one of the key things is in our last 2 cohorts for Reach in the US, we're calling that really Reach Core now. We actually invested in 3 great Australian companies. I'm Australian. I spent many years in the next. I'm a little biased, I think, on this, but I think we're really, really smart. I think we punch above our weight. If you look at population-wise, okay, we're 1/10 the size of the US. But in terms of innovation, and, I think, the reputation of Australians is not quite correct. We are very, very hardworking and we're very talented. And, for example, we are known for building the most energy efficient buildings for 8 years running. According to, I can never remember the name of the ranking, but I think it's called GRESB. And so, again, the rest of the world doesn't really know this. So, in combination with the fact that we have great innovation, we had Aconex, again, exit for $1 billion to Oracle. And so, we've made some great investments into Reach companies that are Australian. Rate My Agent was the most recent cohort in the Reach US program, and Active Pipe, who've just recently closed a $6 million safe note round, convertible note round. and obviously, you know, with the Box Brownie guys as well. So that's three great companies. I've been told Box Brownie were the hardest working companies in the US cohort.
They sure are.
Well, I've been told that, so I'm very proud of that. And I like to think that, you know, and frankly, the companies we've accepted into our first Reach batch, you know, the 6 companies we've gotten, we've got 3 companies that are Australian and 2 Singapore companies and 1 New Zealand company. My goodness, the New Zealand companies are definitely giving some Australian companies a bit of a run for their money because they know how much they need help to go global.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just timing. It's great timing. The real estate industry are really coming on board. They've been very enthusiastic about a scale-up program for them. And so as a result, we've got a lot of partners jumping on board. And it's just the right timing. I know I came back from overseas for 3 years and was sort of waiting for a great, you know, I know there's a couple of programs out there, but they've sort of discontinued or, you know, the way the REACH program works is it's very much a Switzerland kind of program, we call it, because we work with the entire real estate industry because they're all our members.
Yeah.
And so the kind of program it runs is very founder friendly as well, because we want to get companies selling to the entire industry and not to 1 or 2 major vendors only.
Let's just pause there for a moment and hear a quick word from our sponsors. If your business is growing quickly, you need to scale your team. Beepo is an Australian outsourcing company that specialises in helping real estate and technology businesses to grow. Outsourcing is not just about bringing on staff with a lower cost base. Beepo recruits and manages staff based in the Philippines who will become full-time members of your team. They will help you identify the key skill sets, the employment history and other attributes that you need from your employees and match your requirements with the right staff. Beepo will also help you to break down your structure, job descriptions, task management and to understand how having a virtual team fits into your organisation. Done properly, outsourcing can help you understand the internal processes of your business, drive your efficiency and provide you with a roadmap for growth. So talk to Beepo and scale your business for success. Before you mentioned that to get into Reach, you needed to be a little bit more established. So it's not incubator stage. It's you've sort of got a few runs on the board. What is your criteria for being? Can you expand on your criteria for getting accepted into the program? It's the golden ticket question, isn't it? Really?
You know, every single VC says this, and I'm going to be really annoying and say, look, we look for a magical thing called traction. Traction in the market. And look, that can be a combination of revenue. But generally speaking, we really have to like the founders. We sort of call the Reach program and the Reach family a family. You know, it is for us, like there's well over 80 companies in the Second Century Ventures portfolio, you know, and there's partnerships that just, you know, even in my 6 companies I've already gotten in December, they're talking about JVs already. That's, you know, we spend so much time curating the companies that come through. And generally speaking, you know, one, we really feel like we have to add value. You know, is it really going to, one, add value to the real estate industry? First tick. Can we actually add value to them? You know, because again, if they're too early, the last thing we want to do is actually kill a startup. You know, if they're too early and they don't have their systems and processes in place, you know, if they're exploring, for example, you know, we certainly had companies that applied that were exploring the Australian and Southeast Asian market. Exploring isn't really the stage I want companies to be venturing out here and spending money out here. You know, ideally, I want them to sort of come back to me with something along the lines of, well, we've already looked at the market. We definitely want to be in this region. We've already looked at hiring a country lead. We are ready to sell in that market, you know, and that's what the program is about. It's a sales and marketing program. It's an event-based program. And so the criteria around traction is around, well, can you actually sell? Can you tell me what your sales process is? Can you tell me with some sort of level of confidence, you know, how your onboarding process works? You know, just so when I throw 10 big commercial real estate groups at you, can you convert them? You know, can you convert them? Do you know how to onboard their team? We don't want to kill a company when, you know, all 10 commercial real estate groups are ready to go. and they're not ready, because obviously I need to think about the other 5 companies coming on board as well. And so that's what we spend a lot of time doing, making sure that we can add value to the companies, and they're ready to really go. They have a sales and marketing team, they're not just, ideally, a couple of customers is helpful, but probably more than 3 or 5 customers, some of our earliest companies already have 17,000 users on their platform, that's not that early, but they've worked out some kinks, right? They've worked out some kinks, but there's certainly still obviously more things I need to work out, but there's a good amount of I know what we don't know,
Yep. Yeah. They're across all of that. So tell me a little bit about from the Australian and the APAC program. What do I get if I'm joining the Reach program here? Is it the step you do before you join the American one, or is it stand up on its own, against the US one? How does that work?
That's a really, really good question. So the way the way Reach Global works, not just the Australian program, our whole landscape is we are going to be part of Reach Global. I'm very proud that Reach Australia and Reach Southeast Asia is really the first program out of the US, but it is the first program. So I'm going to really answer this for Reach Global. The idea is that very much that anyone coming into a Reach program, and we will be launching other regions this year. The idea is that anyone applying, you should always apply to the program where you want to focus your expansion. So, for example, if you've already got 80% of the Australian market, and you really want to go to the US, well, you should just apply to the US program, because you're really going to focus on that region. But, however, if you're already a US company, you've got 80% of that market already, but you really want to, expand to Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, the idea is that anyone in the world can apply to any program. The US program has obviously, again, been accepting a lot of Australian companies already. But I believe there's also a German company, Germany company in one of their cohorts. So, again, anyone in the world can apply. It's about where do you want to expand. But obviously, I have Australian companies who want to tackle the Australian Southeast Asian market, but also, if they're ready, if they prove to me that they're ready, they can also access the US program and some of their events, but the idea is that you apply to the program where you want to focus your growth with access to the other programs. And look, the access might not be, hey, we've graduated 9 months, we've gone through the Australia program now, we are now ready to go to the US, Or it might be 2 years later, and we're now ready to go to UK, we're now ready to go to South America, we're now ready to go to Canada. These are sort of other programs and regions we're looking at. And so the idea is that you can really plug into any program anywhere in the world in a few years' time. That's the real vision for Reach Global. And so that companies don't have to have this cultural barrier. They're going to have someone like me on the ground really facilitating that process. And frankly, for some companies, even in my current cohort of the 6, there are some companies who are like, we're not going to go to the US. It just doesn't make any sense for us because there's already 5 competitors. But we want to go to the UK or we want to go to Canada. And so that's where the beauty of Reach Global is. We are a family, and you should not need to, once the Canadian cohort launch and UK, those companies can actually access my program as well. So again, it's very much a family. You don't need to reapply. You're already in the program. You can access resources, but you should always apply to the program where you currently, the next 9 months to 12 months, that's where we want to focus the expansion.
Cool. And so what do you get if you're in the program? You said it's about sales and marketing support. What's the value?
So the way the Reach program works is it is different from an incubator and an early stage accelerator program. It is a scale-up program, and what that means is we don't have a space. We don't have a co-working space we work out of. We are not a 6-month program where we are together and building MVPs and trying to get your first few customers. We're way beyond that, really. And so we run a 9-month program. It's very much event-based and sales and marketing-based. So it's very front-facing. Again, if you don't have a sales and marketing team and you don't have don't really have sort of that messaging figured out, you're just a bit too early. And so the way the program works is very much over 9 months. We get together for about a a week every 9 months, and it's usually alongside a real estate industry event. So typically, we'll run, for example, REIQ is one of our events in March. We've got a great relationship with REIQ. We'll be at that event with them. We're going to help them with some of the topics around Proptech, some of our companies, and understanding how technology is evolving with their industry and their members. But for us also, the companies really get exposure to, the membership, access to new customers, getting feedback. Feedback is incredibly important and understanding the real estate industry. So the companies really come in, they get access to a curated list of mentors that sit down and do one-on-one speed dating style mentorships, so access to mentors, access to events. Sometimes they're literally exclusive events that you cannot get access to otherwise because we've got established relationships with those organizations. REIQ is just one example. We've got sort of 9 months of programming that we do. So typically every month we've got a event partner we work with, and then we tack on facilitator sessions, So we're doing events in ULI in Manila, and some of that content will be around, well, how does real estate work in ASEAN? How does it work in the Philippines? How does it work in Singapore? How does IPOs work in Singapore? How's the real estate transactions work on a residential level, on a commercial real estate level, on a hospitality level as well? So that's what it's a combination of content, mentoring, and events.
Right.
So it's pitching, visibility, sales, and marketing.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the first cohort for Asia Pac, for the 2020 cohort.
Sure. So we've accepted 6 companies. I'm really excited about all these companies. It's funny. You start off on this journey and you're never quite sure. I've run accelerator programs before. I've, managed a fund before, and you're never quite sure what you're going to get. And particularly with the fact that there are really a lack of scale-up programs on a global basis, we were really looking to capture, companies that were ready to go to that next level and go international. And so as a result, it was a little bit, we weren't sure what kind of applications we'd get. First of all, we got well over 100 applications. 1 out of 4 of those were already, reportedly turning over $1 million in revenue.
Wow.
That's an amazing result, and I know personally I'm quite proud of the fact that, well over 30% of those were women-led, so women founders.
Go the girls.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy about that. And so, some of these things are really around the cohort. And I think, I'm going through some of these statistics because I want sort of to expand on the kind of companies we eventually ended up selecting, where it was really tough. Like when you look at those numbers, you're like, wow, this is the kind of caliber that we had coming in. And it was frankly with minimal marketing. It was the first year. We had sort of 6 months of really coming into the program itself, and obviously Reach has been on a global basis well known, but, it's relatively new to this region still. And so the 6 companies we selected, 2 of them were from Singapore, 1 of them was a New Zealand company, and 3 of them were Australian companies. So I'm really happy that that's the mix we got. That wasn't really what I was aiming for, but I'm really glad it's a mix of different regions. So 6 companies we got. Ubi Park is a great company we got in. They're focused on mobility solutions for the car park space. So their technology is also useful in street parking. And I believe they've already, got 70,000 downloads, of their app. So, mobility solutions. And again, like a lot of the partners they're working with are actually smart cities organizations, but commercial real estate groups, airports as well. And so that's Ubi Park. And we've also got PAM. PAM is a solution for wayfinding. And quite a few of their clients are already, very much focused on, for example, that they're putting in their technology for LA Stadium, one of the LA stadiums, massive scale. But they also work with one of the Sydney universities. So again, wayfinding solutions, working with large commercial real estate groups, but, potentially, also public transportation. We're really talking about moving people from A to B. Oxstrata focus on strata management. So they're sort of what I call zero, but for strata management.
Right.
So it's a combination of data, AI, automating the strata management process for strata managers. Really fantastic solution. They automate something like well over 70% of the current processes. Usually strata managers can manage about 200 buildings, 200 units. They can 10x that and manage 2,000 units by using their software, which is incredible, an amazing New Zealand team. So that's Oxstrata. And we also obviously have the Sorted guys, great founders, already exited a company called, and they're really focused on the approach of, the onboarding process for tenants. When they sign a lease, there's a form, automating a lot of that process, but also really moving. I think everybody hates moving.
Everybody.
Putting in the internet, putting in the electricity, all that, paying your rent on time. So it's really about that, that smooth transition to living, the faster we go from moving to living. So that's what they really do, and help manage tenant services and really help agents onboard a lot of people faster, and take care of that experience. We've also got Igloo Home. Igloo Home is a piece of hardware. So again, you're sort of getting a mix of people now. Igloo Home focuses on, it's an IoT lock, it's a smart lock. And the idea is, again, to me, it's very much a logistics company. We have organisations, particularly in Australia, where you have assets that are in the middle of nowhere, right? I've heard stories of people driving for 2 hours to collect keys. And really, the job is 1 hour, and then they spent 4 hours driving to the location. So what they do is locks and automated access. And it's very much, the kind of technology involved in that is very much, on a secure, very secure access. But for me also, I locked myself out last week, and that would have been great if I had an Igloo Home lock. I'm still trying to get my body corporate to get on board with that. So the last one is really Really. So Really is a Singapore-based company. They're already got well over 800 transactions through their platform. They work with, the commercial real estate groups like Savills and CBRE. What they do is, for example, once you've signed a commercial real estate tenant in, so for example, Google might be moving into a brand new office space, into a new building. There's a process of onboarding, similar to some ways what Sorted does. There's an onboarding process. You need to really put in cleaners, contractors, electricity, all these contractor services. They do that on a larger scale, but for commercial real estate. So very, very similar process. We've got a great founder taking care of that as well, who's got a ton of experience. He knows exactly how painful that process is. They've done again a ton of transactions in that area. A very, very experienced team, and so we've just got a great mix of companies at all different timelines of the transaction, and again a lot of co-collaboration already within the companies, and hopefully that's quite apparent when I've explained what they do.
Yeah, sure. And so how do you see them helping real estate agents to do their job better, like obviously making things less painful and faster, or?
Yeah, so Sorted and really, both focus on onboarding tenants. Tenants, whether that's commercial or residential. Ubi Park obviously is a parking solution. It's a parking solution, but I mean, what speaks really close to me is really reducing pollution. I mean, you and I'm looking outside today and I'm seeing, my goodness, ESG is such an important topic. In terms of, going forward. If we can minimise the amount of time a car spends on the road and frankly, productivity for people getting in and out, I think that's a great value add. And so that again is getting better value from that space. But potentially also, like if you've got parking space that's free for 2 hours, right now we're not really managing that. They're working different hospitals that are literally their shift workers, right? And you really got 3 shifts, not 2 shifts, right? And so some of this is, well, automating a lot of that, making better use of that space so that we don't have to, we're building space through that use, but also minimizing the amount of time people are parking and looking for parking. I'm the world's worst parker. And so, looking for parking is one of those things that I really don't enjoy doing. And so for us, it's this productivity, but it's also pollution as well. So that's, strata management. And again, another piece of automated technology where you can really, increase the volume of things you can take better care of. So again, that's a very direct value add as well. And wayfinding, my goodness, the amount of times I get lost. Wayfinding is crucial. I think more and more of consumers these days expect to have information quickly. And that's where I see PAM also playing a role in terms of experience. But, getting lost and frustrated, I think that brings to the experience of going to that place. If you have that same experience, you tend to not want to go back there.
No, true.
And I think, again, adding value to that particular venue. But obviously, once you implement wayfinding, there's other channels you can do. Wayfinding, marketing technologies, again, customizing a lot of that experience, I think, again, can make that asset be a lot more valuable.
So how do you want Australian or New Zealand or Kiwi real estate agents to be engaging with the Reach guys at this stage? Like, what should they do?
This is a great segue. We actually have right now we're actually creating what we call an insight panel. So insight panel is really for anyone in the real estate industry that wants to give these products a go. We've already vetted them. We think they're fantastic. We think that they're fantastic founders, great companies, great technology. We filtered through the list. We look at, not just outside of the applications. At Second Century Ventures is a 15-person team that looks at deals every day, and we literally look at thousands. And so we've actually tested them. We think they're the right products and the great products to add to the industry. But anyone out there, real estate agents, real estate property managers, facility managers, if they're looking for technology and strapped for time, like everybody is, and they just don't know which one is the best to go with, I would really encourage people to sign up for the Insight Panel. And, I'll have to share that link with you.
That'd be great.
Sign up for the Insight Panel. We've already got well over 10,000 people signed up for that. And, they can really be the first to say, hey, we want to, and frankly, they're going to be some great deals for our early customers who want to sort of have a look. But, it's already pre-vetted. It saves them time. They can give it a go, get a great deal potentially out of it as well, because, it's exclusive to our network. And, and frankly, give us feedback. A lot of these founders are looking for feedback. How can we improve the product? How can we improve the onboarding process? They come into our program wanting to hear from the industry because it's always ways to improve what they're communicating and what they're selling and maybe features that they didn't even think about. They're technology founders, but they're not in the trenches every day in the industry.
Yeah. Let's just pause there for a moment and hear a quick word from our sponsors. As a real estate agent, you need to be doing more content marketing. But creating posts for social media, creating videos and reports is hard work, lots of hard work, and it takes time. So that's why you need HomePrezo. If you're a typical agent posting 1 or 2 social media posts a week, HomePrezo can save you between 75 to 100 hours a year. How many more properties could you sell if you had that time back? HomePrezo can help you create engaging, informative videos about how the property market in your local suburb is performing. Plus, it makes creating suburb reports, rental videos for landlords, and social media infographics an absolute piece of cake. If you can type in a suburb or type an address, you can create a Prezo using HomePrezo in just a few minutes. Listeners to the Proptech podcast receive a 14-day free trial. Now that's twice as long as the normal free trial. So go to homeprezo.com.au and click the sign up button and use the code Proptech to get your extended free trial. Or click the link in our show notes. And so what do you see having worked with the US and also now and Australia and even the UK? Where do you see the differences between the innovation in APAC and overseas? How is Australia or New Zealand different? What are we coming up with that's different?
I love this question because I do like to compare the regional difference.
Yeah. Oh, we're all very judgmental. We all want to know.
So, I used to live in London. I lived in, the US for 5 years. And, one of the key things that is essentially quite different is that Australia, our real estate assets are becoming more and more like Asia. And what I mean by that is it's becoming more mixed use. It's becoming more walkable cities. Like you see New York and perhaps San Francisco and Miami sort of start adopting these walkable cities. But like Melbourne is really like city of Melbourne, the council is actually blocking off a lot of the city streets so that they can increase the walkways, for people to be more walkable. And so a lot of our cities are becoming more walkable, like a lot of Asia cities.
And the buildings are becoming almost vertical villages in lots of ways, aren't they?
Absolutely. You've got in Australia, you've very much got like the retail sector on the first 2 or 3 levels, maybe, and then you got residential on the top. Well, even before that, you might have a couple of office spaces. I actually see co-working spaces really come into, buildings now, and having localized co-working spaces instead of like full office buildings. So we are sort of getting like retail within walking distance now, and then residential, sort of integrated a lot better. And so as a result, commercial real estate and residential real estate really blends a lot more seamlessly now, which is why companies like Ubi Park are going to do really, really well. Ubi Park will work well in a car space that has residential or commercial. It doesn't really matter. And so for us, for me, the regional differences around, well, we're going to have more commercial real estate in this region, and that's reflected in the batch of companies I've accepted in my first year. A lot more commercial, a lot of, technology that works in commercial and residential, as well. Like it really, 3 or 4 of those companies can work across the board. And so that's where I see a lot of value add. I'm also seeing a lot of hardware integrating really well with, online and offline coming together. So Igloo Home is a really great example of that, where you're actually producing the hardware in Shenzhen. And again, Asia, we're a lot closer to our Asian neighbors. It's very normal for us to have, our products manufactured in Asia somewhere, and also have our customer service in the Philippines, and we're very used to that. And that's a combination of wages, but also language barriers as well, and how close our neighbours can work very easily together. And so I see a lot of hardware technology working really, really well with software. It's I got so many pictures from so many hardware companies that weren't building the hardware but had the software, or building the hardware but like had the software lined up. So I think the great thing, I'm seeing a lot of innovation, in the retail sector, but very much across the retail, hospitality sector. Offline becomes online, and online becomes offline, and it's because we have such good hardware production out here, and we understand hardware out here, and manufacturing, and so that is going to be a really huge play for us. And as a result, the data is huge. But again, fintech as well. I think there's a model between, like in the States, there's sort of rent to own. In the States, it's very common. I think there's some opportunities there. I feel like buying and renting, there's somewhere in the middle. I don't know really what that is, but I feel like that's a space that could evolve. And I think data and transparency can help some of this. Innovations in insurance. I feel like the insurance tech companies, or insurance tech, has been heavily neglected in this region.
Yes.
So I think that's also a potential opportunity to work with our insurance partners, and our banking partners, and aligning all of that data to flow a little bit easier. Again, there's hardware pieces that come into that as well.
Yeah. So what's your vision, or what do you think real estate's going to be like in 5 years' time? I think 10 years is always a bit too far out. I think no one can predict 10. But what do you see are the influences that are going to change agent behaviour, or what do you see real estate looking like?
I think I was just thinking, I made a post the other day about 2020, and we're not quite living like the Jetsons quite yet. And, there's no flying cars everywhere.
Oh, I want a Rosie.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not quite there yet. I think with agents, I think the role of agents. I mean, again, with some Oxstrata, a sort of strata management company being an example, the amount of volume but the demand on customer service is going to be different. I've been talking to a lot of real estate agent organizations where, yes, we're handling more volume, but customers are now, instead of expecting a response, in a week, I know I'm a landlord as well. Instead of expecting a response in a week or 2 days, they're expecting they're literally getting onto the phone and saying, "Where's my response in a day?" 24 hours. Yeah. I'm not that demanding, but I know that's what's happening now. It's really information at the fingertips. So I think that's going to really, yes, definitely you're going to handle more volume, hopefully deliver, more transparent customer service, be able to predict the future, predict what your customer, and be able to provide a more tailored service. I think that's again, great customer service for the industry. But I also think it's going to be more demanding as well of them, to be able to provide that service. It's going to be an expectation. I think what's trickled into that is actually the aging population. People are going to stay in their homes a lot longer because they have all this IoT, the retirement and the shift of people working from home. You and I are both doing it from home, it's great. We're very, very spoiled. And so, I think that's where a lot of this IoT enables that. And so, how will agents sell property differently? The way the space is used is going to be different. The way they present the space is going to be different. You've got millennials who are really getting married a little later and having, pets as their firstborn. I'm certainly one of them. And so, and sort of raising plants instead. So what does that actually mean? And how will buildings being walkable change? And the way you sell that asset is going to be different. And the way you manage that, you're going to get people who are going to rent for a lifetime. And how does that mean you're going to probably have more, property management is probably going to be a more elevated profession, perhaps?
I think property management is going to be this. Well, it's always should have been the centre of every real estate business, but I think this is the decade for property management to completely own the industry. Go property management, girls.
Yeah. I mean, the volume of transactions will, change. I mean, Southeast Asia is obviously going to have a lot of population move and sort of get wealthier and wealthier, but that's very much a renting population as well. Yeah. And again, coming up with that amount of deposit is just, the affordability, co-living, people building their own villages, tiny homes. All of these are really going to be cultural changes, and millennials are going to just expect different things from their space. And how, more versatile designs, and more clever designs. I'm one of those people who really hate the fact that there's a restriction on the square feet. Like, you need to build to an X square feet in most of the cities in Australia. But it doesn't take into account of smart design, clever design. No. Versatile, well-designed space, poorly designed space. It doesn't matter how many square feet you've got. It's a poorly designed space, and so we've got people living in awful boxes, Hong Kong and a lot of Asia tends to have poorly designed space, very small space. But I think there's ways that architectural technology can really change that, I'm seeing 3D renders of models that can spit out different renders, literally 100 vendors with the click of a button. And how does that impact what we put on and what the vendor could really demand, for what they want to live in? And again, trickle down to the agent. How do they actually sell the actual asset?
So, Shelli, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation. You're going to share with us the link so that we can put it in the show notes for the testing panel, if agents or anyone listening wants to join that panel. And if agents want to, or if anyone wants to come and find out more about the program, they can reach out to you. We'll put your contact details in the show notes, but also you'll be at the REIQ Summit in March. So shout out to Antonia and Pete and the guys at REIQ. Yep.
Yeah, I'll definitely be at the REIQ Summit. We're also going to be at ARIC as well in Gold Coast. So there's, I think, in our first quarter. And so, I'm looking forward to, really focusing on, supporting the industry and their adoption of technology. And, we've obviously got some programming in Manila and Singapore as well, for those of us who want to sort of reach out. It is a region-wide program, so our focus is really helping that industry understand, adopt innovation a little bit easier and a bit faster.
Thanks, Shelli Trung from Second Century Ventures. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So that was Shelli Trung from Second Century Ventures, who is the head of the REACH program in Asia Pacific. So it's a really big, bold vision that Second Century Ventures has for real estate. And it's interesting that they see the silos, well, literally the brick walls that differentiate residential, commercial and retail real estate, that they're coming down and we're moving more towards mixed purpose buildings and ways of living. Shelli's observations about property management increasingly being the of every agency really resonated with me. And it's gratifying to hear that REACH had so many female founders as part of their first application. Go the girls. Second Century Ventures is literally the real estate industry putting its money where its mouth is and investing in these businesses. But of course that money's coming from the US. So these are all established local businesses from Australia, Singapore and New Zealand, as Shelli said. And the businesses in the program already have established sales, marketing and onboarding processes and are looking for ways to access new and bigger markets. So to me, this reveals that there's still a gap in the Australian and New Zealand market of nurturing businesses that are in that growth cycle, that are in between startup or proof of concept. They've got something that they know works, but they're looking on how they can scale it up to that $1 million mark in the proptech space, because that step up really is quite a big step. So I suspect we're likely to see more VC money, not less, moving into this space and more programs in this space, and I really hope we do. Certainly the REACH program has done a lot to put Australian proptech startups on the map, so I wish everyone in the 2020 cohort all the best success. And you can see links to each of those businesses in the show notes. So now, if you have enjoyed this episode of the Proptech podcast, we would love you to tell your friends and or drop me a line either via email, LinkedIn, or on our Facebook page. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and now also on Apple iTunes. And if you'd love to leave me a review, I would love you forever. I'd like to thank my audio support, Charlie Hollins and the fabulous Jill Escudero and Charles from Beepo, our sponsors Beepo, making outsourcing easy, and Home Prezzo, turning your data into amazing marketing content. Thanks, Nate, for all the ongoing support. So thanks, everyone. Until next week, keep on propteching.